your every failure. So the reverence and the following comes with a heavy price. Players may be superstars, but deep down inside, they're afraid, insecure, and lonely. And that's why when a player opens up about his experiences, his journey in an honest manner, we need to listen and we need to understand where he's coming from. Ravichandran Ashwin, he's poured his heart out in an interview to Indian Express and The Hindu, where he's spoken about the WTC final snub and much more. So those details will be on the show. We'll also give you an update on Asia Cup 2023 and Rishabh Pant's recovery, how BCCI has been trying to fast track his recovery and whether that really is the right choice. We talk about all of that with Jamie Orter, who is here with us. Also joining me is Vedam Jaishankar. Both have covered cricket for a long time, and I'm sure they have stories that they'd like to share with us on players and their journeys. I'm sure they've interviewed players, they've spoken to players, cricketers, and they'd have some interesting stories to talk about. But first, Ravichandran Ashwin, he's broken his silence on being left out of the World Test Championship final against Australia. He's called the omission a stumbling block in his career and not a setback. In an interview to Indian Express and The Hindu, he said that he knew about not playing in the final 48 hours before the match started. But he said he is a lot more chilled and relaxed at this stage in his life. Ashwin is the #1 test bowler. He was left out despite having taken 4 wickets for 45 in the first WTC final in Southampton. He has been India's best bowler in the World Test Championship cycle, but India decided to go in with a 4-1 combination, which meant leaving Ashwin out of the playing 11. The decision was heavily criticized, especially after India lost the final by 209 runs on a spin-friendly track at the Oval. So let's first, before I get to our guests here, let me first take you through what he said. Let's put the first quote up and we'll start this conversation where Ashwin is talking about the World Test Championship snub. And that's what he said. He said, I would have loved to play because I played a part in us getting there. Even the last final, I got 4 wickets bowled really well. Ever since 2018-2019, my bowling overseas has been fantastic and I've managed to win games for the team. I'm looking at it as a captain or coach and I'm just talking in hindsight in their defense. So the last time when we were in England, it was 2-all with a drawn test and they would have felt 4 paces and 1 spinner is in combination in England. That is what they might have thought going into the final. The problem is for a spinner to come into play, it must be the 4th innings. The 4th innings is very crucial facet, and for us to be able to put that amount of runs so the spinner can come into play, it's completely a mindset thing. So he goes on to say that he would have loved to play because he played a part in getting the team there. Let's just get both our experts on this. Let me begin with Jamie. First of all, Jamie, I know you've read the interview. It's an insightful interview, and it's incredible how honest he is. It's a no-holds-barred interview. You know, he's not blaming anybody, but he's still putting out his point. How do you first react to what he said about the snub? And I also wanted, let's first your first reaction, and then we'll get into specifically what he's talking about, the 4th innings spinner coming into play.
Yeah, good evening, Meha. Good evening, Vedam. Yeah, obviously it's a fairly honest interview to both Deepak Raghav and Venkatakrishna B. You would assume and hope that Ashwin is being entirely honest in what he said, because you can understand, I won't say sour grapes, but you can understand the bitterness and all the emotions he would have been dealing with as he claims that 48 hours before he was told that he's not playing. That's a big blow, and we've discussed this, half a dozen times already. So against all that's happened, the fact that he's flown from London to Chennai, barely been home, barely seen his family, caught up, and then he goes to Coimbatore to play the TNPL, a very charged up match. We don't know whether this interview was conducted before that match or after that match, but there was also certain things which Ashwin did during the match which drew headlines. But, there just seemed to be a sort of a raw honesty, also a bit of loneliness, because as is the lay of the land these days, especially when it comes to the digital medium, you do an interview and then you spin off that for SEO purposes and for views into 3 or 4 smaller chunks. So having read the 3 different chunks that the Indian Express ran, as well as the 2 that came in the Hindu, multiple times, you sort of got the feeling that maybe he's been put in a corner where He's never going to doubt himself, but he's a bit lonely. A couple of his lines stood out, and I'm sure we'll address these as the show continues. But just seemed like a bit of a lonely place to be, Ravichandran Ashwin, right now, despite being number one and having 474 Test wickets.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that stands out for me about this interview is the fact that he's honest, but also how he's seen many downs in his cricketing career, Vedam, and how he's picked himself up. I mean, you remember, in England when he wasn't played, he kept waiting and people kept wondering why he didn't get a game. But it almost seems like every time he goes to England, he just goes there either to sit around or to carry drinks, because you get that sense from this interview that he's aware of the fact that he may not play. It's very real to him, and he says that even despite knowing for 48 hours before that he was not going to play, he was chilled and relaxed. It couldn't have been easy, knowing very well that you are the best bowler there.
Yeah, hi Neha. Indian cricket is always things are very, very, very funny. There is an incident like this earlier, which is nasty. I don't want to use names, but it's one of our well-known Test cricketers. His wife came up to him and said she wanted to go shopping the next day, and if he would accompany her. And he said, "What do you mean? I'm playing a Test match next day. How can I come with you?" He said, she told him, no, you're not playing. You're in the reserves. He was shocked. He said, who told you I'm in the reserves? Apparently, the Brains Trust's wife had told this wife that her husband was not playing, and he couldn't believe it. It actually became a big controversy within the team. The whole thing was raked up, and it says, how is it that the wives know before the players know that they're playing or not playing? I bring this out only for one reason, not to make fun of anybody at all. But, we've handled these things much worse earlier. And if somebody has told Ashwin 48 hours in advance, I think it's good that mentally he's prepared that he's not playing. But, you can never be mentally prepared that you're not playing. You can never be mentally prepared that you are rejected. It's actually you're rejected. You can never be mentally prepared, and it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
I still remember that brilliant line in The Godfather. Michael Corleone asks his father, "How do you tell no to people?" And he says, "You can't tell no to somebody whom you love or somebody whom you like. You got to make the no look like an yes." So somewhere down the line, I think Ashwin has internalized that own argument that in England it's going to be a no rather than a yes for him. And I think it may sound like a defensive mechanism because mindsets are like that, especially of champion sportsmen. If you go to a sportsman and a bowler who's got hit in 4 overs for 60 runs, he'll tell you, "I'll take away the positives from it."
Yeah.
And he is actually right, because we don't understand what the positives are. But he is right, because if he thinks about all the negative aspects, he's going to be a wreck throughout his life. So he is just going to shut out all the noise. He's going to shut out all the bad things and think only of the positive things. And that's the only way forward for a champion sportsman. It can be boxing, where you can get bashed out, but you can't think about it. You got to think of the good shots that you hit so that you can come back the next day. So champions have that mindset. And I think somewhere down the line, Ravichandran Ashwin has developed that mindset where, he is able to convince himself that this is better, that being dropped is expected in England, and he should take it and move on.
Now, I want some clarification here. Of course, you don't want to take names, but you're talking about somebody who spoke to Ashwin's wife?
No. It's not this series at all. No,
Okay.
Sorry. It's not this series at all. It's one of the old series. It's
Okay.
not this series at all.
Okay,
It's one of the old series.
One
What
of the
I
old
meant was,
series where a player
Indian
got
cricket
to
has
know
never
about.
been-
Sure.
Indian cricket has always been like this. That's what I meant.
Okay. So one of the earlier series where a player got to know through his wife that he wasn't part of the playing 11 the next day. The other thing being, Jamie, that, yes, knowing 48 hours before is one thing. You can't really be prepared to be dropped. But that also then proves us wrong in what we were saying, that it wasn't because of the overcast condition on the day that they decided to go in with four seamers and a spinner, and that they decided to bowl first after they went in with that kind of team combination. This was the plan all along. So how do you then look at the team management's decision making in those conditions?
Makes it seem all the stranger, right?
Yeah.
If indeed Ashwin is speaking the truth and he was told 48 hours before that he's not playing, 48 hours before I was on a live video with the sports editor of a different channel who was speaking to us literally 48 hours before the match outside the Oval, and it was bright sunny skies, and we were talking about how Ashwin has to play this match. So if indeed that decision to leave out number one 474 test wickets was taken 48 hours before, it just says how confused Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma actually are, and it puts them in a poorer light than I was viewing them in that 5-day match at the Oval.
Yeah, which is the other thing that we've been talking about, Vedam, about, I know that you have very strong opinion on Rohit Sharma's captaincy. You think that, he's a defensive captain, but just team management on the whole. They were defensive 2 days before the game even began, before the conditions came into play. They knew that they were going to go in with that kind of a team combination.
It's not Rohit Sharma specific that I am against. I am against, you see, cricket is a game where the captain is the boss. It's not the coach or something. Maybe in football, the coach is the boss. In cricket, it's the captain who's the boss. And once he's got his 15, he's got to put his foot down. Can you imagine, let's say, a captain like Sunil Gavaskar, or let's say Imran Khan, allowing the coach to tell them whom to play, whom not to play, what to do? I mean, it's not on. It's not the game. So let's not get confused at all. Rohit Sharma was a weakling if he agreed to Rahul Dravid to do what Rahul Dravid asked him to do. He should have. Thing is, Dravid should have been so convincing that he could have convinced him that this is it. His logic should have been so perfect. Otherwise, it's the captain who decides. The captain can listen to 5 different arguments, but at the end of the day, it is the captain whose neck is on the block. He is the man in charge, and he has to deliver. He can't hide behind saying that the coach told me, or the vice captain told me, or somebody else told me. No, he can't do that. He's got to be the man of the moment and say, yes, it's my decision. Yes, I decided this. And that's where I said that if Rohit Sharma is the captain, he better take responsibility for his decisions and not worry about what Dravid says or somebody else says.
Okay, now the other thing that he's spoken about in that interview is he's talking about his regrets of becoming a bowler. And he goes on to say, tomorrow when I hang up my boots, the first thing I will regret is having been such a fine batter. I should never have become a bowler. This perception I've constantly tried to fight. But there are different yardsticks for bowlers and batters. This is what he goes on to say in another part of the interview. And he says, there are different ways of treatment. I understand for the batters, it is a one-ball game and they require the opportunity. I had this conversation with a stalwart of the game who once said it is because you can see a bowler struggling in a test match for over 40 overs. But my argument is, you are seeing a batsman struggle in the match and nets, and the requirement of a batter doesn't change. It is still a one-ball game. I'm not saying the batter shouldn't play. He should play, and similarly, the bowler must also play. They should be treated equally, because I think at the end of the day, you're earning your stripes. And I definitely believe through the ups and downs of my career, I've kept turning in, and I have earned my stripes. Some people will get 10 matches. Some people will get 15. Some will get 20. The day I wore, this is hard hitting, the day I wore the Indian colors, I knew I will get only 2. So I was prepared for it. Jamie, this is, I remember talking to Anil Kumble once, and his son was very young, and I just asked him casually that, would you want your son to be a bowler? And he said, no. If my son plays cricket, I will not want him to be a bowler. That is your top test bowler, and this is your second best test bowler. Both regret the fact that they were bowlers. And rightfully so. This game is tilted in the favor of the batsman.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the backstory of how he started off playing as an opener or top order batsman. But look, I don't know how much of that statement is actually the true crux of what he was trying to say. I think that's a very headline-worthy statement, which he might have also just dropped in. I think, frankly, from that interview, Meha, or those two interviews, seeing as they came in two different newspapers, that there were more revealing statements than that one. But I get why that one is being played up. I'm not so sure if Ashwin is being 100% accurate there. It may be something said in the heat of the moment while he was talking about something else. There's actually two more, far more revealing statements that he made, and I've jotted down the one. He was asked, "You've been a part of different teams over the past decade. Which is the best memory you have of those?" And he says, "I've forgotten everything. Before, when I used to go to sleep, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I used to think of some great moments, getting a great wickets, great ball, whatever it is. I can't remember anything now." If that is true, Maya, for me, that was the saddest quote that Ashwin gave from the whole interview. And that's the one which I've been thinking about more so than the one you raised. Also, the one he says that at one time, and here I'm paraphrasing, at one time you sort of saw your teammates as friends, but now they're all colleagues.
Yeah, that's
so
the next
those were
one.
The main takeaways from me.
Okay.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
Okay, so that's the next one that we're going to put for everybody. But just staying with this, Jamie, I think the question that was asked to him was about, how you don't try to choose your batters around the pitch that you're going to play on. But for the bowlers, it always comes down to horses for courses. And it's not really about your best bowler being there, best bowler playing in the match. That was the question, and I think that was the answer that he said that, yeah, I do regret being a bowler than a batter. Yes. You want to say something?
Exactly. So here's the thing, right? No team in their right mind would ever drop the number one batsman from their team, right? So how is it that the number one bowler gets dropped? I was trying to think of a certain comparison, right? Maybe some team in a hypothetical world has a number one ranked batsman. And let's face it, there are times when the rankings, especially team rankings, are not wholly indicative of a team's skill. But when it comes to players versus players, it is very indicative. So let's say a team had a number one batsman who had accumulated runs across 8 of 9 countries. Maybe that 9th country, for whatever reason, maybe he had not scored as many runs on seaming wickets, or he'd not scored as many runs in India, or he'd not scored as many runs on bouncy tracks. Even then, Meha, you would never drop the number one ranked batsman. So how does this Indian team, Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma, how do they reach the conclusion that, the conditions weren't favoring Ashwin when Nathan Lyon is a like-for-like bowler and he's played, right? So there's many ways to view it. I just don't buy this argument that the conditions that we saw under a hot sky, under a harsh sun, on fairly dry conditions did not apply to Ashwin.
Which is
I just don't understand what Dravid and Rohit Sharma were thinking.
Yeah, which is exactly what he's trying to say, that why is it tilted in a batter's favor, that it's a one ball thing even for a batter who gets out. But that's what he goes on to say, that there's a stalwart that he was having a conversation with who said that you can see a bowler struggling in a test match for over 40 overs. But my argument is that you're seeing a batsman struggle in a match and nets, and the requirement of a batter does not change. It is still a one ball game. Vedam, you want to come into this, that it is a valid point, and it's something that, which we've discussed before as well, this being a batsman's game. But having said that, why is it that you always decide, we shouldn't be going, we should be going with so-and-so bowler because the conditions are such, but you never say that about a batter?
Look, I'm all for Ashwin having been picked in the playing 11. I think he should have been picked. But I think he's got many of his arguments wrong. We've seen Jeff Boycott, despite his double 100 being dropped. We've seen Sunil Gavaskar in the World Cup 1983 being dropped. So it's not a question of batsmen not being dropped. And if he's so hectic about it, he should find out why is it that batsmen are getting more endorsements than bowlers are getting. Worldwide, it's batsmen who are getting endorsements, not bowlers. There's a reason for that, and I just don't want to get into that those reasons right now. And he's saying that only bowlers' children should never become batsmen. Sachin Tendulkar's son is a bowler. I mean, there's cases like that. It's just that the rub of the green didn't go Ashwin's way. And Ashwin must be having a perception problem within the team. I'm not talking outside the team. Outside the team, when we look at it, I mean, he's outstanding, and I think he should have played. They made a great mistake of not picking him. But if you are going to be dropped out within the team, there's some cross wiring or cross messaging or something going on within the team that we are not able to pick up, and he's not able to convince them. It's not that he has to cow down and sit quietly and tell him you're not playing. He's got to forward an argument why he's a better bowler or why he needs to be playing. Nobody says that you can't talk in a team meeting. The idea of a team meeting is that you talk. If you've been given 48 hours advance notice, then you tell before that itself. The decisions are not taken then. The decisions are taken much earlier. And if the decisions are taken much earlier, he must have been in the loop and he should have known the arguments why he was not playing. For him to suddenly turn around and say, yes, he's not playing because the pitches are not supposed to suit him. But batsmen don't get that kind of leeway. I think it's quite crazy, because you don't really choose batsmen because you don't choose let's say T20 batsman for a test match or vice versa. So there are also selections take place there, and you can't.
Valid point.
I think Ashwin actually has to look inwards.
Okay, the last quote that I'm going to take out from that interview is what Jamie was referring to on friendships in cricket. And again, this is sad, but this is the reality of top class cricketers and what they have to face. He says this is an era where everybody is a colleague. He says once upon a time when cricket was played, all your teammates were friends. Now they are colleagues. There's a big difference because here people are there to advance themselves and to stride ahead of another person sitting to your right or left. So nobody's got time to say, okay, boss, what are you up to? I believe cricket gets better when you share it. It gets better when you understand another person's technique and other person's journey. But it doesn't happen anywhere close to how much it must happen. Nobody will come for your help. It's an isolated journey. Of course, you can reach any professional you want to, tap into some coach, you can pay and go practice, try to feed off them and all that. But sometimes we forget that cricket is a very self-taught sport. And Jamie, this is not the first time I'm hearing of this. And yes, I think he's being very honest in this interview, and which he's done in the past as well. I remember there was another interview that he'd given to ESPN Cricinfo to Siddharth Monga, which was another brilliant interview. But in this one, the thing that stands out is the loneliness that international cricketers, Indian cricketers, face in these times with social media, with people after them, fans constantly pitching one player against the other, and the fact that they don't have teammates to turn to, because sometimes you feel like if there's one person who will understand what you're going through is another teammate. But then the competition is cutthroat. Everybody out there is trying to hold on to their place in the team. I can't imagine what that atmosphere must be like.
Yeah, I mean, Ashwin is not the first person to speak about this. We've heard this from more so overseas players than Indian players. In India here, we're not encouraged to speak about it. So from that sense, Ashwin is the odd man out, right? And he's referenced this as well, the fact that he's into cricket so much and he's been viewed as over analytical, which he claims, I don't know about this, he claims that has led to him not being picked for any leadership role. So Ashwin is probably right in saying all he said, but you can also counter argue, Maya, that this has come from a man who has failed to, like Vedam said, has failed to convince those around him and those in higher places than him that he's worthy of playing 6 consecutive test matches in England, which he's been left out. It could also be the views of a man who knows that, look, I'm not playing T20Is for India and I'm not going to be part of India's World Cup. So seeing as I only have this one format left, and look, we know how Ashwin stands out from this Indian team for many reasons. How much cricket he watches, how often he tweets about other games happening between Zimbabwe and Bangladesh, the fact that he runs a YouTube channel. Now, maybe along the way, this also has ruffled people's feathers. I don't know. I have no proof here. I'm just speculating. I'm thinking out loud here. So maybe all this has led him to be maybe isolated, and so a lot of the feelings could be coming from that, you know. But I have no doubt that it is lonely because, like I said, he's not the first cricketer to speak about how lonely dressing rooms can be. It is a team sport, but in many, many ways, cricket is also not a team sport, right? A lot of matches do swing on how one player does or how if one player drops a catch. I mean, there's very, very few sports which, despite being team sports, are so reliant on the performance or non-performance of one or two players. So all in all, yes, I did feel that Ashwin probably feels a bit bitter and maybe lonely as well.
Yeah. The other thing, I was speaking to Robin Uthappa Vedam. This was a series we'd done on mental health challenges that athletes face and whether there is enough help for them. And Robin Uthappa has spoken about his mental challenges that he's faced during the IPL in international cricket as well. He's spoken about it. And one thing, when I asked him the same question as to, is there somebody you can turn to in the team? He said that that's the thing. You cannot talk to anybody else because, you know, they are competitors. They are, like Ashwin saying, they are your colleagues. They are not your friends. Everybody out there has their own insecurities, their own issues to deal with. So, it's a difficult one because you think that they'd understand, given that you're in their situation, they know the challenges an international cricketer faces. But having said that, you can't open up to them. And in that sense, I feel like not enough's being done when it comes to mental health of athletes as well, especially cricket, given the kind of competition, given the kind of stress you have, you know, holding on to your place in the team.
See, a lot of things have changed within the Indian cricket setup. You know, earlier you couldn't take your wives on tours. And quite some time back, you couldn't take your wives on tours, and you were two in a room. It's not like today everybody has his own room. You were two in a room. Only the captain had a room for himself. So there was a different type of bonding really going on. They used to mix the team. They used to have a senior and a junior. And if it was a long tour, they used to change their room partners. And it was done constantly and with a conscious need to ensure that everybody got to know everybody and there was some sort of team building and bonding. That has, of course, gone out of the window. Now, everybody just wants to rush back to the room, or as soon as the game is over, they've got some other dinner date or something else to go to, and they want to just be off. And they, regroup next morning. They don't sit and eat together, maybe lunchtime when there's a match, but otherwise rest of the time they're not together. They even earlier they used to swim together. They used to have a timing where the team had to swim together. I don't know if that is still being followed. So I think many things have changed. The prosperity of cricket has brought with it its own set of problems, and this is something that the board has to be aware of. Which unfortunately our board is not aware of many things. And when a major jet fighter pilot comes back, there is a debriefing done to him. The debriefing, after the debriefing, he goes through a psychological aspect of it. So you need somebody like that. You can't play 100 miles per hour bowling, for 2 hours and then come back and act as if nothing has happened. You need somebody to talk you, handle you, work on you. So a team also needs these kind of specialists with it who understand there are problems like this, and they could be, you got to gradually get the guy down. And I don't think we are ready for it. If you look and read about many of these other sports, they too have this problem of loneliness. They too have pressures, and pressures are tremendous, and you need people to work on these pressures. Now, what is the problem for any cricketer? You can ask this to any cricketer. It's the thinking cricketer who has an issue. If you are thick-headed but brilliant, just go out, play there, nothing sinks. You just go hit or bowl or bat and come back, you're fine. But if you're a sensitive cricketer, you're a thinking cricketer, then every moment is actually replayed in your mind. Ashwin might say that he doesn't replay previous matches, but if he's doing that, it's damn good. It's very good. It's very good for his psyche. But I very much doubt whether he'll be able to do that because the game is played mentally. You are all the time at it mentally. And that is where cricket needs a challenge. You
Yeah.
need somebody to work on the mental aspect of the game. It's just not a question of just getting physically fit, going there, playing, and coming back. You need somebody to work on the mental aspect of your game also. And I don't know if our board is sharp enough to understand many of these issues.
No, absolutely. But kudos to him for having spoken, having been so honest about what he's felt, what his journey has been like. Hats off. Not many cricketers would do it. They'll obviously they'll be insecure. They'll be slightly afraid. But he's done it. So kudos to him for having spoken so honestly. Let's move on now. After all the controversies around Asia Cup 2023, finally Asian Cricket Council released the dates of the tournament yesterday. The detailed schedule is yet to be out, but we will explain to you all that you need to know so far about this hybrid model. What will the two groups be like? What are the likely venues for the matches in Pakistan and Sri Lanka? So firstly, the tournament will begin from the 31st of August and end on the 17th of September. The ACC has accepted Pakistan Cricket Board's hybrid model, which means 4 matches will be played in Pakistan and 9 matches will be played at a neutral venue in Sri Lanka. India will not play in Pakistan. All their matches will be in Sri Lanka. So let's also tell you the groups. There are 2 groups and 3 teams in one group. Group A consists of India, Pakistan and Nepal, and Group B consists of Sri Lanka, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Top 2 teams from 2 groups will qualify for the Super 4 stage. Top 2 from the Super 4 will reach the final. So the only match that Pakistan will play in Pakistan is their group match against Nepal. The matches in Pakistan will most probably be played at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, and in Sri Lanka it will be at 2 venues in all probability in Palakkad and Galle. India and Pakistan might play each other 3 times in the tournament. So that's the schedule. That's all that you need to know for now. We'll also, as and when there's a detailed schedule out, we will let you know where India are playing, what are the venues, and all the details from Asia Cup 2023. But one thing, Jamie, that I think Indian fans would be happy about is that India has that advantage. They'll be playing all their matches in Sri Lanka. They'll know the conditions much better than anybody else.
Yeah, it's good that finally the ACC reached an agreement with the PCB, and PCB will probably see this as a victory, because at the end of the day, their hybrid model was indeed accepted, and yes, there are only 4 matches played in Pakistan, but I just think a major crisis has been averted because had you snubbed the PCB, they would have perhaps boycotted the World Cup, and nobody wants to see that. Look, in regards to the schedule, yes, we don't have the final schedule. 9 matches played there. India will be happy that, because for them, the Asia Cup is very important. It's not a normal Asia Cup, and I hope that they don't blunder the way they treated last year's T20 version of the Asia Cup, because they'll hope that KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer, potentially, though I don't think so, potentially Bumrah might be back. So it was very, very important that India get to play the Asia Cup, no matter where it is. Just seeing how big these 3 players are for India in a World Cup year. So it's good it's happening at least somewhere.
Absolutely. Now, you talked about Jasprit Bumrah and Shreyas Iyer and that they could be back for the Asia Cup. Now, there's one player that India, we're talking about injuries, and if there's one player that India missed badly in the World Test Championship final, it was Rishabh Pant. The good news is that Pant is recovering well, and if reports are to be believed, his quick recovery seems to have surprised the BCCI. With the World Cup in mind, one understands BCCI is trying to fast-track Pant's rehab and get him ready for the tournament. Pant is doing his rehab at the NCA under the guidance of physio S. Rajnikant, who's helped many other cricketers, India cricketers, with their rehabilitation programs. Now, Pant posted a video of him climbing the stairs without his crutches, and he seemed to be in good spirits. There you can see him walking around in the NCA. That's one picture. The other thing is that Jasprit Bumrah is there with him. Shreyas Iyer is there with him. And, they watched the World Test Championship final together. But the question of BCCI fast-tracking his recovery, I think, could prove to be a bad move. We have seen instances in the past where players have been rushed for World Cups and it hasn't ended well. Case in point, Jasprit Bumrah, he was rushed from his rehab. Shreyas Iyer as well, I remember. And there was, at one point, the captain of the Indian team, Rohit Sharma himself, Vedam, had said that, look, if you're playing, I remember this was in Bangladesh, where, Deepak Chahar got injured, Kuldeep Sen got injured, and Rohit Sharma said, we've got to be 100% fit before we're playing, we're representing the country. And NCA, has come into under the scanner for mismanagement of player injuries. So I hope that's not something that BCCI is trying to do, because as important as Rishabh Pant is, the kind of situation, the kind of accident he had, I hope that there is no fast tracking of his rehab just so that he can make it to the World Cup.
See, we really don't know what injuries are and how you get out of injuries, because if a guy is physically fit, doesn't mean he's also mentally fit to play the game. I mean, the game has changed so much. I still remember, when Kerry Packer, he forced the Australian players, or the entire series players, I think, except for Viv Richards, to wear a helmet. And he said, I'm not paying you money for you to go and sleep in a bed for 6 months. I want you out there to play. And he ensured that they wore a helmet. He called the West Indian cricketers sissies. He said, you're sissies. And they were playing in pink, actually. And he called them sissies. And then he put one of the Australian, I think it was Australian rules football coach. He put him on them and said, get these guys, lick them into shape. They don't look like cricketers. And they were made to look athletic. They got athletic. They had a mental coach. We are talking of Kerry Packer, which is more than 30 years ago. And what are we doing? We are trying to push people through at NCA and tell them to get ready. NCA can field 11. They have got enough injured players there. They can field 11 and play the match tomorrow. But that's not the important thing. You need to get them mentally prepared, physically prepared. You got to see that all the scars are healed. I'm talking of the mental scars, and that takes a long time to heal. To get those healed and then get them back on shape, get them into some sort of a match shape, match practice, play a lot of matches, get that confidence, forget about the injury. So that will take time. It is like you correctly said. There's no point in just pushing them through and said, yeah, we got them ready. And I think that is not NCA's job. And NCA has to ensure that it does a lot more than just getting people ready and fit for the match next month or a month after next. They need to work on their long-term career too.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has happened in the past as well, Jamie. I remember, like I was saying, Rohit Sharma has also said it, but I also remembered Chetan Sharma in a press conference admitting that they erred by rushing Jasprit Bumrah before the World Cup. So that's something that happened. It's a reality. With Deepak Chahar, another player I remember, kept getting injured. He'd come back into the Indian side without finishing the series. He'd get injured. Similarly, Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul was rushed. It's a different thing that, that didn't go well for him in terms of how his poor form continued. But I hope that's not something that BCCI is doing or the NCA is doing. We don't need to rush these players out of injury just because they have to play the World Cup.
Absolutely. I'm on the same page. And look, Shreyas Iyer, Jasprit Bumrah, Deepak Chahar, Rahul, KL Rahul, severe injuries, yes, but may have still traditional, or we can say common sporting injuries, specifically when it comes to the fast bowlers, right? And batsmen, lower back. But what happened to Rishabh Pant? That's not an injury sustained on the field. This is someone who was driving in the dead of the night in the winter. We've driven on these roads. We've seen that stretch going to Meerut, where there's no one around. He was driving at night. He's had a car crash where he's escaped death. There were reports that had he been wearing the belt or not wearing the belt, all that stuff, right? So Vedam is right in talking about, especially when it comes to Rishabh Pant, the mental trauma, right? Perhaps the NCA and the doctors, surgeons, wherever these high earning players go to get their surgery and get their various levels and rounds of analysis, people have a plan in place for a knee injury, for a back pull, for a muscle spasm. Rishabh Pant's case is very different. There are burns, there's ligaments. So we hope that he's in the best hands. I've always been very, very skeptical of what goes on inside the NCA. I've heard it's gotten better. Let's hope it's much more professional than it was in the years I spent in Bangalore. Vedam probably knows a lot more about this than I do. But look, Rishabh Pant should not, of the four, he should definitely not been rushed. We've just seen yesterday, there are clips of him just learning to walk, you know.
Yeah.
He has to come back as a batsman and a keeper. I mean, my heart goes out to Rishabh Pant, the amount of times he has to do what they call that, uthak baithak, as you say in Hindi, you know. So please, let's give him a year, give him 15 months. Come back, Rishabh Pant, come back. He's the greatest Indian keeper batsman to my mind because of his success overseas. He's done what no keeper has ever done overseas, score all those hundreds. Please, BCI, do not rush him back particularly, and don't bring back Jasprit Bumrah anytime soon. Let them come back when they're fully fit, because you don't want to risk them coming back 90%, 95%, right? Make sure it's 150%, if that's even possible, before you call these outstanding players back.
Absolutely, and those are nice visuals of him interacting with the youth team. I mean, just keeps them busy, keeps their mind occupied, just gives them something to do. So it's nice to see that visual of him with some of the younger cricketers. Okay, now we've been excited about the Ashes. It finally began today, and England won the toss. They chose to bat first. First ball of the Ashes series, first test of the Ashes series, first ball, Zach Crawley hits it for a 4. At the moment, they are 160 for 3. I'm going to ask both our gentlemen before I wrap this up. First session, advantage Australia, given that they've taken 3 wickets, but England have also scored at a very good run rate. What do you think, Jamie and Vedam? Let's start with Jamie and I'll come to Vedam.
You know, Meha, Vedam, I really want to hear especially what Vedam has to say on this, because I know how much he loves Test cricket and how much Test cricket he's watched. What are they thinking? This is the flattest track at Edgbaston we've seen in years.
Is this happening in...
Yes.
Is this happening in Ahmedabad, or is it happening in Chinnaswamy?
Yeah,
where is this match happening, Vedam?
all this pre-Ashes talk. Okay, it's only what we're only one session down, but you know, you're rolling out these benign tracks. I mean, why wasn't this track given to India at the Oval? You know, India might have scored 350 runs. It's just such a flat track. Surprising for Birmingham. Yes, Birmingham, Edgbaston, you do score runs, but I'm just shocked that, you know, that Zach Crawley's got 61. And again, I mean, hats off to them. I don't know how we all feel about this bad ball term, because the Brits have a habit of saying, oh, we revived the game, we did the game. I don't want to hear all that jingoism from them. But I just think, you know, in fact, they're 150 odd now for 3, 161 for 3, in fact.
Yeah.
This is what I think this is what the fans, especially those mad Barmy Army jokers, they must be loving it. They must have had a couple extra pints also during the lunch break, because this is what you want to see in Test cricket. You want entertainment. But I was just kind of surprised at how flat that day one track was.
It really was. I mean, Nathan Lyon was bowling straight away, and I was wondering if that's something that they would have expected. But Vedam, your take on it, the first day so far, is it England who are looking good, you know, or is it Australia? I mean, they'd be happy they've got those 3 wickets. Zach Crawley is out. He looked very good. And I love the reaction from Ben Stokes as soon as Zach Crawley hit that 4 off the first delivery. How do you see this first day gone so far?
I look at the great marketing success for many reasons, really, because usually, traditionally, they start their test matches on Thursday, if I'm right, and they've moved on to a little Friday. Maybe they want to get the Friday, Saturday, Sunday crowd, you know, when they get maximum crowd, really. So I think they also moved. They've decided, let's make a lot of money. After all, Ashes comes once in, is it 4 years, 2 years?
Yeah.
4 years to England, and so let's make good money.
Yeah.
And I think they're just testing the waters, you know, giving them flat tracks, you know, initially, so that, you know, both the teams, you know, get a lot of heroes going, a lot of big names coming, and then later slip them into it. But like I said, this is not an Ashes track. This is not Ashes weather. And I think this is what we should have had for the World Test Championship, rather than giving us that kind of a pitch. They should have played on that pitch. And I'm very glad that Australia actually rested one of the fast bowlers, Mitchell Starc, because on a long series, you need all these bowlers, especially if you're going to get pitches like this. You need a lot of good bowlers around. And I'd like to see how England performs too, because England is actually struggling, and they are trying to cover it up with these kind of flat tracks. I'm not so sure it will work for them.
Okay, with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jamie Alter and Vedam Jaishankar. That's it from us. News 9 Live is what you need to subscribe to. How do you like our programming? Do let us know in the comments section below. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up. Please press that like button and watch us on News 9 Live. That's it from us. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.
The world is facing a crisis.
You've noticed an increase in the amount of money that you're spending at the grocery store. You're not alone.
But rising food prices are starting to bite.
Millions are struggling to put food on the table, raising alarm bells across the globe.
Fresh vegetables are scarce. It's only going to get more expensive.
Food insecurity looks like obesity. We have an abundance, but it's the wrong food.
But what if we could reimagine the global food system? A great leap forward is making food more affordable and sustainable. As the global population continues to rise, the demand for food is increasing.
If we have more mouth, obviously we have to produce more to feed everyone,
putting a huge amount of pressure on the world's arable land. Traditional agriculture relies on the use of chemicals.
The natural way is less productive, more susceptible to nature's shocks.
Prices for labor, energy, and raw materials are skyrocketing, making it expensive for food producers to even transport their crops.
when the farmer produces something in his farm, he has to travel a lot of distance.
Investors think more price increases are coming, bringing back the era of resurgent inflation